Good afternoon, everyone. As I said in the previous video, 2019 was the first calendar year where I always had a book in my hands. I've been always thinking about the possibility of making a top 10 books I read in 2019 video, but there were so many good ones. That I just had to make it top 14. Hell, I was originally thinking top 10 with 4 honorable mentions, but nah, the honorable mentions are still pretty good. I gotta give all these books their proper credit. Starting with number 14, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert Pirsig. This is the book that kickstarted my reading habit. This book is about a journey filled with a lot of philosophical conversations. It really gives you a lot to think about, especially what comprises quality and how to live life in order to have the best quality. Number 13, Stories from Texas by W.F. Strong, or Dr. Strong, I should say. Oh my goodness, this book made me a prouder Texan. This book perfectly captures in chapters that are 2, 3, 4, 5 pages, vignettes, if you will, all the wonderful, beautiful things that make Texas great. It's very clear that Dr. Strong loves Texas, and by reading this, maybe you, as if you're a fellow Texan, you'll get a greater appreciation of the state as well. Number 12, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. This is the best fiction book that I read this year. I wanted to read it because it's on every banned book list for being controversial for its use of racist language. The thing is, it takes place in the antebellum period of American history before the Civil War. You cannot write a fiction book in that era without saying the N-word every couple pages. The thing is, it really helps. It really helps with the message of the story about living in a society with flaws and how to be a better person despite them. This is a book about adventure. It's a book about morality. It's a book about self-improvement. I loved it. It makes me want to float down a raft as well. Number 11, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Everything that we do is a habit. This book deconstructs our actions into habits in order to improve good habits and to get rid of bad ones. Habits are comprised of a cue, a craving, a response, and a reward. For example, you watching this video, cue, it showed up at your subscription feed. Craving, you want to see what it's about. Response, you click it. Reward, maybe you got something good out of it. Perhaps your next book recommendation. Number 10, The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. This book argues that we as humans have inherent flaws. Here they're called laws. There are at least 18 of them to be precise. Things like how we tend to see things in short term, how we are very self-focused and at times narcissistic, we are envious, stuff like that. This book tells us how to understand our flaws and things to do in order to overcome them. This book really helped me understand why certain people are the way they are. I would sometimes be reading through the pages and, oh, this reminds me of such and such person. Oh, this reminds me of my buddy so-and-so. Very informative, and it really helped me empathize with them as to why some people are the way they are. Number 9, Mindful Thoughts for Walkers by Adam Ford. It's so cute. If you've been in this channel for long enough, you know that I love walking. It has great things to keep in mind for being mindful, for practicing mindfulness in something as simple as walking, for you to better connect with yourself and the environment around you. This is very, it gives me like Buddhist Zen vibes. Practicing the thoughts in this book, it really makes me feel peaceful when I go out walking. It doesn't have to be hiking. It could be walking around downtown. Even downtown, I feel peace. Number 8, Authentic Gravitas by Rebecca Newton. Most self-improvement leadership books are written by men. It was interesting to hear what a woman had to say. But there's this one page in the book that really gave me a slap across the face. You can read all of the leadership books in the world, but how can you lead others if you can't even lead yourself? Oh, if you want to become a person with followers, you must become a person worth following. It starts from within. And you can't do that without learning how to better improve your gravitas, how to become a person worth following. Number 7, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. This is the quintessential personal finance book. The story behind Kiyosaki, he had 2 dads. His biological father, whom he calls his poor dad, and his buddy's wealthy business owner dad, or his rich dad. He literally adopted his friend's dad as his rich dad. This book comprises all the lessons that his rich dad taught him by changing the way you will view money after reading this book. My New Year's resolution for 2020 was to keep track of my finances down to the dollar, and I use a lot of what this book says in order to apply that. Number 6, the dating advice book to end all dating advice books, Models by Mark Manson. It's targeted for straight men, but this advice literally applies to anyone in the dating scene. Just like how Dr. Newton was talking about how a person who wants followers must become a person worth following, pretty much same idea here. If you want to date others, you must become a dateable person. And the best way to do that is by embracing yourself and by living truly and authentically with yourself and not being afraid to display that in the best possible way to others. This book is the furthest thing from just a list of pickup lines, pick your favorite, see which one works. No. This book is truly about how to better present yourself in the dating scene by working on yourself. It doesn't even talk about dating until the last 2 chapters. Number 5, The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. Look at all the bookmarks I gave this. There is a lot to learn in this book. There are key ideas, charisma tips, resources, financial advice. This is a must-read if you are an entrepreneur. But there is something in here for everyone, from employees to business owners. This book really changes the way on how you view work and how you view time. Just like Models, this is a huge paradigm shift on how you view the rest of your professional life. Number 4, a true American classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I want to read this book at least once a year. This is the 3rd time, 2019 was the 3rd time I read it actually. This book changed my life in high school. I was very shy and quiet and awkward. But after having some of the ideas in the back of my mind, I was still quiet, but able to carry on a conversation well, and I felt that it made me a little more respectable. This book is a must if you want to be more social, if you want respect, and if you want gravitas. I love it. Number 3, The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. Stoicism, the philosophy from the ancient Romans and the ancient Greeks, is starting to make a comeback. There are things that were thought millennia ago that are still very much relevant today. By practicing Stoicism, it will lead you to have a more balanced and stress-free life. The idea behind this book, there's 365 pages. You read 1 page a day. Maybe in the morning, maybe in the evening, as long as you read it. There are quite a few people that see Stoicism as an end-all be-all religion, but if you know when to apply Stoic teachings, it will make you feel enlightened. Number 2, I'm actually going to lump two books into this. The Autobiography of Benjamin Franklin and Benjamin Franklin by Walter Isaacson. Y'all saw this coming. The autobiography was what led me to become a massive fan of Ben Franklin, his thoughts, the way he lived his life. I love Ben. The one flaw that the autobiography doesn't have, Ben died before he even got to the part about his involvement in the American Revolution. Therefore, Walter Isaacson, who is arguably the best biographer of Ben, does him justice by covering everything from his birth to his death in a very inspirational kind of way that isn't afraid to showcase his flaws. This book got me more pumped up than his autobiography. Even though I practiced the Moral Perfection Project from the autobiography last year, this book, the biography by Walter Isaacson, really helped me. It made me more passionate to live like Ben for 2019 and onwards. But surprise, Ben Franklin is not the #1 slot. That honor goes to Helen Chapman. The News from Brownsville, otherwise called the Helen Chapman Letters. Forgive me if you're not from Brownsville, Texas, but I do have a heavy bias on this book. It might be the rarest book I have. Well, let me explain. Helen Chapman was originally from Massachusetts. She married the guy that would eventually become the quartermaster of a fort that we used to have here in deep South Texas. Brownsville, Texas was built around that fort because people saw promising signs of economic growth. Since people came from the Northeast, different parts of the United States, and they settled here. And Helen Chapman saw how we came from. She was here since the beginning of Brownsville. She saw it grow. She would describe everything to her mother. Most of these are letters to her mother. She would write in beautiful detail, lots of sensory descriptions. You could hear, you could smell the smells. You could hear the sounds that she describes. She interacts with some of the most historic and original figures from Brownsville, and it makes me want to be there. It makes me want to be here when my town was created. Oh my goodness. I love Helen because she was in Massachusetts. She was born and raised in Massachusetts and lived 4 years in Brownsville, whereas I was born and raised in Brownsville and lived 4 years in Massachusetts. So it's interesting to compare and contrast her experience with my experience in ways where we have common ground, like the weather, the people, the towns that she describes back in New England. And it's interesting to see what a northerner thinks about deep South Texas. Oh my God. I would love to have a conversation with her. She's oh my God. If you know a thing or two about books, you know that a lot of these do come out in many people's favorite lists for their favorite books. It reminds me of when I was in middle school and I wanted to develop a taste in music where I would look up on YouTube, best songs of all time. And I would adopt the top 10 of those songs into my taste of music. This was a little bit like that. So I'm interested to see, even though I learned a lot from these books, I'm interested to see, now that I've developed a taste in literature, I guess, how this year will play out in terms of the books I will read. Let's see which books will be my top 10 or top 14 for 2020. But until then, have a good one, take care, read well, kick ass.